Hey, what's up, everybody? This is William from For the Billions back with another video. And today I have a special guest with me, the president of Technologists of Color. I've known John for over 4 years now. Been working with him with Technologists of Color. And we have done previous interviews in the past. Today we are going to be doing a mock interview to get me prepared for the Meta interview that I have coming up tomorrow. So with that, I would appreciate it if you guys would hit the like button. If you enjoy this type of content, it may be a small click for you, but it means a lot to me and I would really appreciate it. And also, please leave a comment down below if you enjoyed this type of interview. And also, please go ahead and check out Technologists of Color as well. And I will have links to their social media and also their website in the description down below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and turn it over to John.
Hello, folks. My name is John Exume. As William said, I am the President, Executive Director of Technologists of Color. And what we do is we curate events and experiences that are tech-focused. We work with a lot of different companies, helping them source Black talent. And another thing that we do well is that we focus on the Black entrepreneur, helping them get the technical skills that they need to be able to launch amazing products.
All right, awesome. I'm glad to have you here, a special guest, a friend of the channel. And today we are going to be discussing some questions that John has curated relating to data engineering. So I'm interviewing for a data engineer position with Meta, and John has volunteered his time to be able to get me prepared. So, John, do you want to kind of go over some of the themes of the questions, and before we go ahead and get into anything?
Sure. So the theme of the questions is we're using the STAR method. So for those of you who have interviewed in the past, the STAR method has been something that um, companies like Amazon, Meta, and others have used when interviewing individuals. And the STAR method, each letter in the name stands for something. So S stands for situation, T stands for task, A stands for action, and R stands for results. And it's a it's a way that these companies sort of filter out the cream of the crop talent to join their companies. Because you have to understand that these companies do pay a high salary for great talent, and they use the STAR method to help them decipher which people who they interview that can join their team. And so one of the focuses about the STAR method, and one piece of advice that I always tend to give people is when you're interviewing for companies like Meta and Amazon, a lot of times people refrain from talking about me, like me, the person being interviewed. Those companies want to hear those things. So when you're answering the questions, they want to hear what you contributed to whatever you're talking about. So if you worked on a project, they don't want to hear, well, the team built this. They want to hear what you, as part of the team, built in this project. Okay. So case in point, if I'm talking about, and I'll give an example. When I interviewed for Amazon a few years ago, uh, I received a question about, tell me about a project that you worked on. And I was talking about when a company that I worked for, we released our mobile version of our web application. And I was looking at the gentleman, and I can tell that he wanted to hear what did John do as part of this mobile release. And so I talked about that I was the person in charge who created all the sprints for the project. I conducted the meetings. I made sure that everyone stayed on task to deliver. We released, I set the date of when we would release, and we released on that date. And after, here's what we did when bugs came up and what I did to contribute to making sure that we had a successful launch. And I can tell when I was talking, he was nodding his head like, okay, all right, yeah, yeah, all right. So you want to talk about you and not about the team when you're interviewing for these companies and they're using the STAR method. That's my best piece of advice for you.
Yes, I appreciate that. I mean, it's so important to, if you're the one being interviewed, to talk about yourself, not the team
Yes.
isn't interviewing for that one position. So I really like that point. But yeah, John.
Yeah. So what we're gonna do, to just give the audience an idea of some of the questions that we'll ask. So I'm gonna ask Will some questions, and I'm gonna be picking questions from each of the letters. So I'll pick a situational question, a task-related question, an action-related question, and a result-related question, and I'll ask Will to respond, and then I will. Do you want to keep the feedback till the end, Will, or do you want to do it in the moment?
Let's keep it to the end,
Okay.
so we can kind of keep the same flow.
All right.
And one more ask is it okay if I take notes?
Sure.
All right.
This is your mock interview. You can take notes, but not for the real interview.
Okay. Got you.
All right.
Okay.
And folks, also as we go through these questions, if you have some feedback, for Will, definitely put it in the comments after you watch the video. So, or if you agree with me or disagree with me, I like to debate.
Okay.
All right. Let me know when you're ready, Will.
I'm ready.
All right. Question number one. Hello, Will.
Hi, John. How are you doing?
All right. So, well, from this point, we have passed the introductions where we introduce each other in our roles. So we're going to dive right into it. Will, can you describe a project where you had to optimize the performance of a Python script processing large data sets?
Yes, John. I have worked on a project where, in fact, I had to work with my data engineering team on a very large and intensive project that was covering all of the largest market for my company, the North American market, and using one of our flagship products. Essentially, we noticed as time went on, we had logging in place that would say, hey, this job is taking way too long for it to finish. It used to take 30 minutes for it to finish, and there's a lot of teams depending on this data to be delivered from one place to the other. Essentially, what we had to do was we are using Google Cloud Platform, and with that, we had to optimize our SQL scripts by replacing some redundant code that we had from when previous team members were working on it. We had to have a lot of technical debt tickets that we created to track the process of optimizing this code, and we had to update our Google Cloud Composer, which is also the same thing as Apache Airflow, but for the Google version. We had to go within our Google Cloud Composer environment and update our Python DAGs, or direct analytical graphs, in order to direct acyclical graphs, to be able to optimize that code. And we implemented something new called generators, which cut down the time it would take for us to finish that job. And we went from, so when we first created the job, there was a small amount of data. The data grew and it became maybe 2 hours it would take for the job to finish. And then with the implementation of generators, we were actually able to get it down to 15 minutes for us to be able to finish going through millions of lines of records. So that is one of the projects I worked on at my company.
Okay, excellent. So we're a big Python shop, Will, and Python is at our core of what we do. Well, can you describe a task that required you to implement algorithms like sorting, searching, or graph traversal in Python?
Yes. So one of the projects we had to work on, it was a pretty simple project, a simple task. We were utilizing a third party company called SendGrid. Essentially, SendGrid sends emails to end users. It can be companies or individuals, and that's how we would use it with multiple other CRMs like HubSpot and other ATS systems that we did in house as well, and then send out those emails to our marketing teams, companies, and also end users as well. And we noticed that we were getting a lot of people opting out of our emails. So what we needed to do was track all of those email opt-outs.
Mm-hmm.
With that, it was like we came up with the script and we noticed it was kind of slow to do it. And with that, I started watching some YouTube videos trying to figure out, okay, how can we kind of improve this code? Because what we were doing was at first we did it manually, then we created like some automated script within our Google Cloud Composer environment. And then I said, okay, well, hey, look, we have the ability to be able to use, and essentially, after it was already sorted, I looked it up and said, okay, well, we can use some sort of binary search algorithm to be able to search through this list of people that we have from our database. That was our database, our data warehouse, which was Google Cloud BigQuery. Pull that information in, put it into a list, and then go through that sorted list, and be able to find all the people who opted out of our emails. The reason why we wanted to do that was because if you opt out of an email and you send them an email, they can set it up as spam, and your rating goes down if you send the email to somebody, and they'll start to say, hey, well, this organization isn't good for our platform. So they start to put you in like promotion or put you directly into spam for other people. And it can really hurt a company by doing these types of things and bring down the marketing analytics. So after implementing binary search, it made it easier for us to be able to automate the process so we're not sending unwanted emails to people.
Okay, excellent. So, Will, here at Meta, we use a lot of different technologies. We use a lot of different frameworks, libraries, things like that here. Can you walk me through a time when you had to use some Python libraries like SciPy, Scikit, or others, and how did you use them to learn for data analysis and machine learning tasks?
Perfect. So I have used Pandas is the one I've used the most.
Okay.
Pandas is one of my, I would say, one of the most used Python libraries I've used in my role. And what we would do is use Python data frames. And going back to one of the projects I had to work on, I had to do a huge project or data migration
Okay.
from one of the products that we were using called Talend. This product, it was kind of like a drag and drop, and you could easily create ETL processes by using Talend. Only thing is that the organization noticed that it was costing too much for the licenses. So because it's costing so much, you have to pay per the user who is using it, and the more people you get, is getting more expensive. So they wanted to cut that out, and then also centralize all of the jobs that were in Talend into Google Cloud Composer. So you can tell I'm using Google Cloud Composer pretty often. Essentially, in Google Cloud Composer or Airflow is an orchestration tool to have all of our jobs in. So we made a switch, and so we went from using a drag and drop to writing out our own Python scripts within Google Cloud Composer. And essentially, what I had to do was I had to replicate what was in the Talend job and put it into Python code. And this was something that it took a little while for me to do. It was around 20 different jobs that we had to migrate. But after we did it, after we implemented this Python code, we had to, like, for an example, I would break down one of the jobs we had to do, similar to the SendGrid example, which was one of the jobs. We had to take in data from our source, which was our data warehouse from Google Cloud BigQuery, create our business logic, so update some of the code, like the example where I was talking about the sorting of a list, or I had to update the people's names for them to be able to fall in line with a particular format. And after I did that, we push it into our Google Cloud Storage bucket, which is our blob storage, which is very cheap compared to other different storage options, depending on how much data you have, and then push it into Google Cloud Composer and also into Elasticsearch. So implementing that code would do all of that and saved us on the costs that we had to do, that we had for all the licenses. They were able to cut down on how many people had licenses to Talend, centralize that code, and then also make it easier for us to troubleshoot if we ever had any issues with a particular job as well. So that led to the company being able to save money, improve their processes, optimize on the time they would take for the jobs to finish as well. So that's essentially one of the projects I worked on relating to that.
All right. All right. Well, so for us, we're all about results here at Meta, and one of the questions that we have, looking at your work history and jobs that you've worked in the past, what were the results of your efforts in terms of performance improvements, data quality, or scalability? How did you contribute to that?
One project that I worked on that comes to mind, it was kind of like a multi type of job project. So it took over a year to be able to implement. Essentially what we did was we wanted to create something called intra-job step logging. And we had to create a data observability platform. This helped us with our logging and making sure that we were able to troubleshoot, maybe making sure that we were able to see long-running jobs, job failures, the reason why jobs were able to fail. I helped them with creating this platform using Google Cloud Functions and also using Elasticsearch as well to be able to store some of that data. With that, I created documentation in order for others to be able to better use and provide value to the data observability platform. And then also I created a data dictionary all by myself, and I thought that was really interesting. Based off of the 4 years I worked at my company, I amassed a lot of different documents and documentation, and also a lot of Jira tickets that we used in order to create new fields. I put all that information together into a Google BigQuery table that was then stored on the data observability platform as a dashboard. So that helped to optimize our process and also to be able to provide value for the organization as well. I mean, I got a lot of compliments on just the idea of creating a data dictionary. Is something that we definitely needed, and most people, they don't really, at least at my company, they don't really want to create a lot of documentation. We're more so like, hey, we're working on things, and then we working on it. You don't really want to take the time to do documentation. But for me, I think that it's really important to be able to document everything that you're doing. So that way, hey, if you have something that breaks, we have a few steps that we can able to fix. So that is how I was able to help the organization to do that. I was able to help the organization to optimize their process.
All right. Will, how do you stay up to date with new libraries and tools in the Python ecosystem for data engineering and science?
Yeah, so I watch a lot of YouTube videos.
Okay.
Honestly, I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I read a lot of blogs, and I go to different workshops and events, in addition to a lot of conferences as well. So I try to stay active in the community. I always am willing to learn, and by speaking with other organizations and other professionals in my industry, I learned so many new things that I can implement. One of the things that I learned that I implemented, I brought it up previously, was the use of generators. I saw a Medium blog on generators. I said, oh, I really need to speed these jobs up. This is one of the tasks that are, like, let's say the task was to move resumes from one place to the other. So we got it into our data warehouse, and we needed to get it up in Elasticsearch within a short period of time, 15 to 30 minutes, and it was taking 2 hours. So we used those generators. I learned that from a Medium article.
Okay.
And also, I learned more tricks from Google Cloud Platform by going to Google conferences. So learning about new tools, and also tools that we already use, new features that come up as well. And when it comes to Python, I read a lot of articles on Python as well. So that is essentially how I stay up to date. And that's also one of the results that I was able to come up with after reading through these articles and going to these conferences.
Excellent. And you mentioned like your favorite resource is Medium. Is that correct?
But, well, if I were to rank them, my favorite resource is YouTube. Favorite resource is YouTube, and then I would say blogs. I read a lot of blogs very often. Medium being one of them. I also read Substack as well, and I'm going to conferences as well is another way, because when you go to a conference, they send you emails and documentation and everything else, so that way you can essentially get better at using their platform. That's the only way I was able to, in addition to learning about Google Cloud Platform, I was able to get experience with AWS, Azure, Snowflake, and other cloud platforms like DBT, by going to these conferences as well to kind of keep myself up to date.
Excellent. There's one more question, Will. Why Meta? Why do you want to work for Meta?
Right. Well, not only do I use Meta every single day, I mean, ever since I was a kid, Facebook was something that everybody used. It's something I grew up with. In addition to that, I have met many other professionals who work at Meta. Say it's a great organization. Say how just the amount of benefits and value that you receive, just even being in the room with some of the staff that work there, is so beneficial. One of the things that I noticed with Meta is that they also provide continuous learning as well for their staff. And I said, oh, okay, well, hey, I'm somebody who wants to stay up to date. I'm somebody who would like to grow within my skills and be able to provide more value to an organization. I know a lot about data engineering, but I can always learn more. And I'm never going to know everything. So that's why I'm always trying to learn something new. And I really like the focus that they have on their engineers and their staff in general. So that is some of the biggest reasons as to why I chose Meta to interview with.
Excellent. All right. Interview closed. All
Okay.
right. So I do want to preface for those who are watching this that the questions that I asked are not the exact questions that you would be asked by Meta. I'm just impersonating someone who works at Meta and asking some questions using the STAR method. So I want to preface that for the viewers. So I don't want anyone from Meta to be like, "Oh, we don't ask those questions." So, but these are questions using the STAR method. So let's talk. So let's give you some feedback. So one of the things about the STAR method that I want all the listeners and folks who will be viewing this to understand is with the STAR method, people want to hear numbers. So one of the questions, the first question that I asked Will was from situation. So when I asked him, tell me about a situation where you had to implement data. I don't think I asked that question. I think I asked you describe a project where you had to optimize the performance of a Python script processing large data sets. So when someone asks you a situational question, or like ask you a question, can you describe a project, right? It's a good thing to put the person in a frame of mind where they can follow the story along, right? So when you mention a project, I always like, I'm a firm believer, give them the name of the project. Well, I worked on Project Phoenix, and then give them a short description of what the project was. I worked on Project Phoenix. Project Phoenix was a project that we worked on, which we had to implement um, two new components to the website. So now the person who's hearing your response has an understanding of a project. It was called Phoenix, and this is what Project Phoenix was about. And then you go into answering the question, right? And being that the question had something that said where you had to optimize the performance of a Python script. So what you want to do when you have a question that's asking you about data, you want to be able to tell the person that previously the script took 40 minutes to run, and after my updates to the script, it now only takes 15 minutes to run. All right. A lot of times they like to hear percentages, right? So let's say you work in an environment which what you do directly affects customer support, and you fix the bug that reduced phone calls coming to customer support. Let's say customer support was getting 100 phone calls a day on a particular issue. You were given a ticket which solved the problem, which reduced the volume to only 25 calls a day. How you want to articulate that to the person who's interviewing you is saying, here's the name of the project. I had received the ticket, which there was a particular issue in our application, which caused whatever the issue was, right? After fixing the bug, it reduced calls to customer support by 75%. So they hear that, they're like, wow, this person, the person I'm interviewing, fixed something that helped reduce call volume in support by 75%. They love to hear numbers. So you want to pepper in there in your responses to their questions how what you did improved the business. And even if they would ask you a question that has a negative undertone, because that, it happens. There are times we work on projects and the project we worked on caused more issues than it solved. You want to be able to articulate in your response how, yes, you worked on this issue, it increased the volume by 10%, but after working through it, we understood where the pain point was and we were able to reduce it. It increased by 10% to start, but after we were able to analyze and fix the issue, we reduced it by 20% or something like that. They love to hear percentages in these types of interviews. All right. So you want to be able to pepper that in. Another thing is you want to keep your responses to know. I'm a firm believer, and people may debate me on this, but I feel that it's a method that I've used and I've had great success in interviewing. You want to keep your responses to about 3 minutes. All right. The minute you go past 2 minutes, the interviewer forgot what you said when you started your response. So you want to keep them engaged, and you want them the goal of the interview process is not only do you want to leave with them having a great impression of you, you want them to leave with having a total understanding of who you are. And if I sign off on you, what you're going to bring to the table at this organization, right? Now, when I'm in the interview space and I'm interviewing people, and let's say I'm interviewing and my team is drowning, right? I'm looking for someone to come in who I can train quickly, who can help me from drowning. If I leave that interview not having a good feeling about who you are, I'm not going to give you that call to come in for the final interview, right? So you want to be able to leave the impression that you are a results oriented person and that you're someone that I can trust, that if I say yes to you, you're going to make life at this company easier, right? So that's some advice. The question that I thought you answered the best of the questions I asked was the result question. When I asked you, um, I believe I asked you, was it what were the results of your efforts in terms of performance improvements, data quality, or scalability? Did I ask? I don't remember asking you that one. I think it was
Yeah,
can you
yes, you
describe?
did.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so, yeah. So that was a question I thought you answered the best, because you gave, you stayed focused on the result. You gave the performance improvements. So I got a good gist from that question. I think the question where I would say needs some improvement was the task question I asked. Um, when I asked you, describe a task that required you to implement algorithms like sorting, searching, or graph traversal in Python. You started off good, and then I just lost you.
Right. Yeah. What
Yeah,
about SendGrid? Yes.
yeah, I got lost. But here's the thing: you mentioned SendGrid, and you mentioned a little bit about how you were able to reduce the licenses. I
No,
think,
it was that was a different. So that was a talent question,
yeah,
but for the
yeah,
yeah for SendGrid, it was the one where people were opting out of
right.
emails.
hmm But I think it began with a T. That application. It was
Yeah,
something you mentioned that you said you some work that you did help reduce the use of licenses.
that was for Talend. Talend
Right,
is a tool. Yes.
right. So the thing is, if you can equate the reduction of licenses to a number, so
Mm.
by the work I did, I helped reduce Talon licenses that we had to purchase by 10%. I helped reduce the license count by 10%. That's stuff I want to hear as an interviewer. Because you mentioned that you reduced licenses, but you left me wanting to know
Mm.
more, like how much, you know, how many licenses? Was it three, four, five, six?
Mm.
So you want to be able to connect an actionable number to when you say reduction. I'm a firm believer, and people can fight with me all day on this. I can tell you from experiences, I get jobs. Like when I get to the interview, I get hired. So folks can debate me all day on this, but I can tell you that when you're able to provide numbers to people, they like that. They want to hear numbers, especially when you advance through the interview process. Like the first interview, when you're interviewing the recruiter, that's not really, you know, they're just trying to feel you out to see if you're a good fit for the company. But as you advance through the process, giving data like 10%, I helped reduce by 5%, or it increased user adoption by 20%. We want to hear that when we're interviewing. We're like, okay, this person is a solutions oriented person. We need to bring this person on board. Right. So that's what you want to do. So one thing, you want to keep your responses to no more than 3 minutes. Because after that mark, unless it's something that we're really excited about to hear, you've lost us if you've gone past that. All right. So you want to keep your responses to about 3%. You did great on the eye contact. I like that. You stayed firm on the eye contact. I didn't see the chair move around a lot, so that was great. But yeah, so that's some of the feedback. So overall, you did a good job. There's a couple of things to clean up, and I believe in you. You'll knock this out the park.
Thank you so much for that, John.
Yeah.
So John, I wanted to ask: is there anything else that's coming up that you would like to plug or bring up in on this recording?
Yeah. So our next event is going to be on June 26th. It's not titled yet, but check out textilecolor.org. Our next event will be on June 26th. So stay tuned. We are coming up next week is Atlanta Tech Week. So check out www.atl.tech, TECH, for all the events. A lot of the events are free. Some of the events are tied to the Render Conference. So definitely, come on out, network. For anyone who's watching this who is unemployed and you're looking for a job and you're not able to go to the Render Conference, there are tons of events that are still free. You got to get outside. People need to see you and people need to know who you are, right? The method of I'm going to LinkedIn, I'm going to find a job, I'm going to submit an application, those days are long and gone. You got to understand that there's probably 300 other people who are doing the same thing as you, okay? Going on LinkedIn, finding a job and applying. And so the advantage that you need to gain is you need to get outside, start talking to people, find out where they work at. I'm a firm believer, and I'll share this. When you go to these events, take a ask the person, can I take a picture with you? And they're like, what? Can I take a picture with you? Just to remind you, when I connect on you on LinkedIn, of where we met. Take that picture. Don't come home and then bombard them with messages on LinkedIn. You want to wait a couple of days. Go on the website, look for some jobs, and if you find one, reach out to that person and say, hey, like, hey, Will, we met at this particular event. Here's a picture for a reminder. I really enjoyed our conversation about your company. I have some questions. I found this role on your company website that I'm really interested in. Would you be able to help connect me to the right person that is hiring for this job? Here's the thing that you need to understand. For people who have a job, there's something called a referral bonus. Okay. So people who have jobs would love to, get people in to their company because they get money. So use your connections, the people that you meet, leverage that relationship and have them help you get in. Okay. Now, once you get in, it's up to you to interview well to land the job. But the goal is to get an interview, not to be in the pile of other resumes that a recruiter has to look at. So that's all I'm gonna share on that. There might be a webinar on that coming soon, elaborating more on that topic. So stay tuned.
Yes, sir. And also, there's another thing I wanted to bring up too. You just came out with a webinar or an interview that you just recently did as well. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So we have a podcast called Get to Know, and we had the opportunity of interviewing Diamond Henderson, of full stack product development. She is an amazing product manager. If you just search on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, Get to Know podcast from Technologists of Color, you'll see her interview as well as other interviews that we've done in the past few months. And if you have a story to tell, definitely hit me up on LinkedIn. My name is Jonathan Exume, and I know we'll share my info. But send me a message on LinkedIn, and we can get you on the calendar to interview you. But the story has to be interesting. All right, so that's the key thing.
All right.
You got to have an interesting story to tell about your journey in the tech, and we would love to interview you.
Perfect. Well, John, I will say that I appreciate you for coming on, interviewing me. I had the pleasure of winning a ticket from you and Technicolor to go to Render ATL. This would be my third year going in a row, and I wouldn't be able to do it without you, man. And so I really do appreciate it, and I will see you there and anybody else who's in the Atlanta area during the week of June 9th through the 15th. I hope to see you guys there as well. So it's going to be a great time, a lot of workshops, a lot of networking, and a lot of large organizations that you may be able to network with as well, and potentially skip that initial process of applying for a position, and you may be able to get an interview a lot more quickly. So that being said, John, thank you so much for coming on. Let me go ahead and close out right quick. So please, guys, let me know what you think about this video. As I said before, I'm extremely appreciative of all the support that I've been receiving over the past few months. And I want to give a huge shout out to the BTB squad. I could not be here without you all. In addition to that, I want to say I have been partnered and sponsored by Temu. So if you check the links in the description down below, you can see a link to download the Temu app, and I'll be able to get an affiliate link to generate some monetization for the channel. In addition to that, I have come out with my first Substack newsletter, and I got my first subscriber. So I'll make a video about that as well. My first paid subscriber for my newsletter. It's a lot going on, and it's an incredible feeling and experience to have so much support from you guys. With that being said, please go ahead and hit the like button, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And also hit that bell notification icon if you want to be notified whenever I make new videos on YouTube. That being said, do not forget to build your billions.